Hi friends, this is Date to Tank. Thank you for joining me. Welcome back to Please Be Happy. This is part 23 in our series. I also am feeling a little dyswork today, so I'm in a hot hoodie in the hot upstairs. It doesn't matter. Just needing to say it because honestly it matters. And, I'm a little bit uncomfy today. So it's probably going to affect a little bit of how I'm feeling about everything. But honestly, still wanted to play a game. Wanted to be here because I've been a little bit spotty because of personal items that have happened in my life. As you all know, this is not my full-time gig, but I try as much as I can to be here for you because it matters. So, in the meantime, please be happy.
Ugh, it's about time. I was getting bored.
Why are you picking on me? No! Okay, spirits collide. So, last we left off, we let Juliet and Aspen have a moment to talk amongst themselves, just as friends. And then went to see our friend Silver, who was really struggling over their broken bird. So we took it back, and Silver even came all the way inside. So now Aspen and Juliet know about Silver. Or at least that there is a Silver. So, we'll see how the rest of this goes. In the dining room, Aspen and Juliet are both seated again. It's far past Juliet's bedtime. She looks as awake and alert as I've ever seen her. I sit down too, waiting for the question I know is coming. Doesn't take Aspen more than 2 seconds.
So, who exactly was that? Obviously, she was a Miho, but...
I take a deep breath and try to think of where to begin.
It's a long story.
You know that's my favorite kind.
That's a good point. It is your favorite kind. Just realized I don't have my little cushion. I need the cushion. Come here, cushion. Haha. One of my favorite things, actually. Little foot cushion. Because I am short. I'm a little miniature short king. And I need it to prop my feet up to make sure I don't roll downhill because I'm also in an old house, so I roll downhill. Don't make fun of me. I am awesome. I am cool. I am proud of me. And it's okay to be dysphoric sometimes, especially right now. Love you all. Nodding, I finally settle on where to start.
She used to be a fox, just like me.
Oh. Telling Aspen and Juliet about Silver and answering all of their questions takes a long time. I tell them just about everything, starting with back when we first met, right after I went to the museum. I leave out the parts about Silver's history, though. Instead, I talk about the time I've spent with her and myself and the things I've learned from her. She likes to call me dog. I can anticipate her snarls. Eventually, Aspen goes home and Juliet goes to bed, and I spend the rest of my day watching TV and lazing around. I close my eyes at one point, just intending to take a quick nap, but when I open them, see that I've slept until nightfall once again. Don't mind too much, at least Juliet will be up by now. As I make my way towards Juliet's room, I notice the sound of conversation coming from inside her office. Freezing with my hand against the handle, I listen.
You were right all along.
I know. I know all too well.
There's the sound of a chair scraping across the wooden floor.
You always did have to learn things the hard way.
A few moments later, I hear the sounds of flapping, leathery wings from beyond the door and the papers being scattered. Flapping sound quickly grows distant and then disappears entirely. Hello, silence. Breath as I hear Juliet's footsteps and papers being picked up, then Juliet sitting down in her chair once more.
You can come in now, Miho.
I really have lost my touch when it comes to sneaking. I open the door as invited to see Juliet's study, looking the same as ever. The open window and blowing curtains are the only indicators of her guest that just left. I lower myself into the empty chair as Juliet strikes a match, relighting the lamp that was blown out.
How much did you hear?
Just the very end. I was coming to see you. I didn't know you already had company. Sorry for listening in.
It's all right. I don't feel the need to keep anything secret from you.
Please don't. Kind of the lover thing. It's important to communicate. If you're in a relationship, fucking communicate. It's not that hard. It's extremely hard for straight people for some reason. I don't understand it. Just fucking communicate. You're better than that.
The only reason I haven't introduced you to Ezekiel is for his sake. He isn't fond of meeting people.
It's okay. I know how that feels. What did you mean, though? About him being right?
Juliet laughs, closing her eyes.
Where to begin?
Backstory. I want the backstory. Sugar mama, tell me your backstory. She stands up and closes the window, peering out into the night for a moment before she sits back down.
I told you that Ezekiel was the one who helped me gain my footing in the human world, yes? Well, there's a bit more to it than that. He was the one who turned me into a vampire in the first place.
Ah, he's your sire. Oh.
I have a story not too dissimilar from your own with Zhong Ying, though it began in a very different way.
Backstory. Okay. It's fine. Adjusting my seat so I'm next to Juliet, I lean forward and take her hand. Leaning against me, she idly runs her thumb against mine as she stares into the flickering candle, recalling days long past.
I was a human once, of course. Long, long ago. In those times, we didn't know about the underworld, or anything that lay beyond the edges of our sky. Few denizens of the underworld traveled to the overworld back then. Those who did were feared and reviled, but also disbelieved in. Truth turned to hearsay, hearsay turned to legend, and legend turned to fable. Stories told to impart some moral or lesson, not to be believed. That's where today's term fabled was first born.
Oh.
As a human, my life was painful and dull, and cursed by circumstance. I lived, believing and hoping for a better tomorrow that never came. There came a time when I had enough. Enough of agony, of poverty, disappointment.
Aww.
I took myself to the dry edge of the world, beyond which lay nothing but the unknown. And I threw myself off.
Well. Wow. That's impactful and deep. And Miho's face says it all. For those of you who having thoughts like that, stay here. No, stay here. I love you. I need you. We need you. Stay here. Trevor Project link is down below. I gasp, unable to stop myself, even though I know she turns out okay.
As I fell, I had plenty of time to contemplate the stupidity of my decision, and to dread the fate that was rushing to meet me. How solvable all my problems seemed as I fell away from them. What should have been the end was only more pain. Somehow I survived, but just barely. Broken.
Oh.
As I opened my eyes for what should have been the last time, I saw trees and a purple sky that I thought must be heaven. Then, a figure appeared, and I was certain that I was in hell. Ezekiel offered me a choice. Breathe my last, or accept his gift and live on. From there, the world I had plummeted from, the world that contained all my pain and sorrow, was a minuscule dot, nearly imperceptible above me. That we are having this conversation is proof of what choice I made. In time, my body healed, though not fully.
Juliet taps her cane against the ground to demonstrate.
I had gifts and powers beyond my wildest dreams. I felt I had cheated both life and death. And yet, decades passed. Even the novelty of those gifts eventually wore off. There was a secret, though. A truth I had yet to learn. In the underworld, magic flows freely like air, imbuing those connected to it with power that lasts for generations. Yet being that close to so much magic at all times takes a slow toll even on the bodies of the fabled. We age down there, like humans, but at a much slower rate.
Oh.
But for those who live their entire lives in the underworld, no matter how long they may be, there eventually comes an end. Immortality was a lie. Not so in the world above, though. So distant from magic and its source, those effects aren't felt, and so immortality was truly attainable. Decades later, when it came time for war, I remained disinterested and unconcerned by its effects. When it came time for peace, I was equally indifferent.
Fuck your war and everything about it. I got better things to do, like amassing wealth. I don't blame at all any of Juliet's decisions. Having gained immortality and realized how small her world as a human was, and then stepping into so much more. In a lot of ways, I can relate that feeling, having come from extreme poverty, like extreme freaking poverty in the rural mountains, and then effectively reclassing up into the middle class on my own. Like, it took a lot, and I don't want to downplay that. Of course, I had benefits in that I'm a white person, so of course racism wasn't something that as much affected my daily life as it would someone else being held back. But like, the feeling of difference here, right? The feeling of change and effective change that's completely world-shattering and world-shifting in terms of your perspective of how you are is so profound. Like, just my ability to just realize I was in the wrong place and move, and doing it down to the last dime, but I did it, was so impactful and so empowering. But I can see how, with the scale at which Juliet is, even War and Peace doesn't even matter in her purview because her world is that much bigger. So I get that.
For a time. Ezekiel himself had tired of the hedonistic lives our kind led.
Oh.
He departed for the overworld nearly as soon as the dust had settled, determined to maintain a quiet and hermetic existence. He returned to the underworld occasionally, with stories of how things had changed and were changing. Eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to return to the overworld, just to see. We rode and lived upwards together, a journey that took days back then. And he told me of the island where he had settled down and found peace. He gave me only one piece of advice, which I brushed off as obvious and unnecessary. to not concern myself with the lives and affairs of mortals. We arrived near what would someday become Wellington, and soon went our separate ways again. I had intended to only make a short visit to sate my curiosity. To my surprise, I discovered a world that had moved past much of the violence and suffering that I so hated, and a world that had come to welcome the fabled. I extended my short visit over and over, finding myself unable to leave. Gradually, Ezekiel's advice all but faded from my mind.
Finally, Juliet trails off. I sat with rapt attention the entire time she spoke and only relaxed my muscles when I noticed how stiffly I've been sitting. Juliet doesn't have to finish her story because I can see the last line for her.
Until you met Cosette.
Slowly she nods. We both sit there quietly, our hands locked together, as we contemplate what she just shared. It's hard for me to picture Juliet as anything other than how she is today. Warm, patient, kind. I can't imagine her as someone who would have just been feared and reviled. Yet I can understand the pain, if only to a tiny extent. I can understand what some of those years must have felt like. For all my time alive, I've changed the most in the past few months by far. But for Juliet, her life has been nothing but change. Both the world she came from and the world she exists in now. I also can't help but think about what she said regarding immortality.
So, the fact that you're thinking about going back to the underworld, a place where you get older, does that mean that you want to...
Juliet brings her other hand up to enclose mine, pressing tightly.
Not for a long, long time.
Aww.
But I can't deny that around every corner, behind every door, looks a painful memory of days gone by. I had never loved anyone before Cosette. Not in so deeply a way as to use that word. But there were still friends whose company I enjoyed, and time that was spent laughing and smiling. They're all gone now, but I'm not. I see their ghost everywhere. But those memories are all that I have left. I'm afraid to forget, just as I'm afraid to remember.
The flame dances on the candlewick, throwing a crazy shadow into the wall to burn itself out again soon. I know I should say something, but I feel paralyzed. Everything I could say feels inadequate. In the face of everything she told me, do I even have the right to want her to stay? If going back to the underworld is the only way for her to escape the pain, then shouldn't I want her to go? My brain tells me yes, but my heart tells me no. My heart tells me I want her to find a different way. Is that wrong of me? No.
Miho?
The sound of her voice breaks my revere, and as she removes her hands from mine, I can see a sparkling uncertainty in her eyes.
I have something very selfish to ask of you.
Oh?
What is it?
If I do go, would you come with me?
What?
Juliet speaks quickly, like she's embarrassed or nervous.
As a fabled, you would be safe in the underworld, unlike a human. But because your magic doesn't come from the same source, you would still be immune to time's flow. I still can't decide. I feel terrible asking you this, and yet I know I would feel more terrible not to. Don't answer me now. Please, take time to think about it.
All I can manage is to nod dumbly. At least her second request is an easy one. Thinking about it is all I'll be able to do.
Thank you.
Right now, though, I want to do anything but think. Standing up, I reach for Juliet and pull her into a hug and a wordless kiss. When we finally do pull apart, I lay my forehead against her, and she rests herself against me.
I love you.
Oh, that's all I can think to say.
I love you too.
Oh, my heart.
Thank you.
2 weeks later. SpongeBob voice. The next couple weeks go by in relative normalcy. Night of Wednesday. I wake up, go to work, and spend what time I can with Juliet. Aspen comes by occasionally, but for the most part, is busy by herself. Neither Juliet nor I talk about that evening in her study, or her invitation. We don't have to. It's practically the only thing on my mind. When I walk down Cuba Street or climb Mount Victoria, I have to ask myself if I'm ready to leave it all behind. I want to be with Juliet. That part's easy to decide. Even if we've only been lovers for a few weeks, I've spent enough time with her to know that I want to stay with her. I know I can't promise her forever, but right now there's nothing I want more. Still, there's a lot I'd have to give up. Aspen and my other friends, as well as the first home I've ever had. The memories may be painful for Juliet, but for me, they're almost nothing but good. I always thought I was the kind of person who could move at the drop of a hat without worrying about leaving anything behind. Now I realize that's because I never had anything to lose before. The candlelight from Juliet's trusty lamp flickers as we sit quietly in the dark. There's the occasional noise of her pen scratching or of Juliet typing something on the computer, but it's otherwise silent. I sit with the book open in my lap. It's simple enough for me to read, but I've been on the same page for ages. Pictures of the underworld, both photos and drawings, take up most of the space. Captions go along with them, describing what some of the places are. An enchanted forest, a town where it never stops raining, a castle that can walk like a person. Like the Hello Neighbor house? Yababa house? They all sound and look interesting, but I can't really make myself feel excited about the idea of seeing them. Not the way things are now. The sound of Juliet closing her laptop catches my attention, and I look over to see her rubbing her eyes.
Done already?
For now, I have only this one request to work on, so I can take my time with it.
You look like you could use a nap.
Do I? I think I'm alright. The night's still young, after all. Perhaps a spot of tea would be nice, though.
Juliet reaches for a teapot, but frowns when she picks it up.
Ugh, I'm out. I have to fetch some more from downstairs.
I can get it for you. I could use a snack anyway.
That would be nice. Thank you, Miho.
Sure.
Really, it's just an excuse for me to put the book away. I hop up and go downstairs, leaving Juliet in her study. Despite time that's passed since we talked about going to the underworld together, I don't feel any closer to deciding on what I want to do. My relationship with Juliet only makes me more confused. Sometimes things between us don't feel much different than before we started dating. That has its ups and downs to me. I like that I don't feel pressure to act differently, but I also like all the new things, like kissing her and holding her hand. Yeah. Juliet seems to enjoy those things too, but I wish I wasn't the one starting them all the time. Neither of us are the type of person to be really lovey-dovey like I've seen on TV, and that's fine. I know she means it when she says she loves me, and that's enough. Besides, both of us are still new to this, and I'd rather it be that way than feel like I need to catch up to her somehow. In the kitchen, I start boiling a pot of water while I make myself a sandwich. Juliet keeps tea leaves in the kitchen and in her office, so the only thing she needs me to bring is the water. I can words. And with the cane, I guess it's harder for her. I munch on my snack while I wait until steam starts to rise and the kettle whistles. Aspen got an electric kettle for Juliet that's much faster, but I know Juliet prefers her tea from a regular old pot. Once it's ready, I grab the kettle and carefully take it back upstairs with me.
Here you... Oh.
Oh, with a pen still in her hand, Juliet slouched over the open book on her desk, fast asleep. As quietly as I can, I set the teapot down somewhere safe and tiptoed towards her. I was only downstairs for a few minutes, so she must have fallen asleep right after I left. I'm used to her going to bed right after we spend time together, but it's still early in her usual waking hours. Lately, though, I've been hearing the sounds of her being awake at all sorts of different times. Whether we're hanging out or not, I guess it must be catching up to her. Aw, after moving the lamp a bit further away to be safe, I grab a blanket from nearby and drape it across Juliet's shoulders. She doesn't react, but I can see it rise and fall with her steady breathing. There's something that feels odd about seeing Juliet asleep, and it takes me a minute to realize what it is. I'm not used to seeing her look so relaxed. With her eyes closed and sloppy posture, she doesn't look guarded or elegant or any of the other words that would usually describe her. Instead, she just looks like anyone else when they're asleep. Somehow it's nice to see. I wish she could be this open when she's awake sometimes too. I gently take the pen from her and set it aside, doing my best to keep the blanket from sliding off of her, and then I lean forward and blow the candle out. Good night, I whisper into the darkness before tiptoeing out of the room, spending the last of my time before bed by myself. I'm warm. It's the first thought that comes to my head as I wake up. Not just the normal warmth of my bed and covers, but there's something else, something different? I groggily open my eyes and look around, but nothing appears to be different. When I roll over on my side, my necklace bumps against my chest. That's when I realize the source. My bead is what's causing it. Not only is it glow gotten brighter, but when I simply hold my hand near it, I feel heat emanating. Is it tied to love? I am also afraid to touch it, but when I finally do, it feels as cool as ever in my hands. There's something else that's different about it, though. A crack runs across it, so thin that I have to rub my eyes several times just to be able to see it. I could almost mistake it for a hair or something, except I can feel that it's not. When I put my fingertip over the tiny fracture, my skin tingles, almost like a static shock. I can tell, either by instinct or touch, that the crack isn't surface level, or caused by some damage. Instead, it comes from within. From something trying to get out. My heart starts to race, obliterating any lingering sleepiness. Still isn't ready, but it's getting closer. Soon. It'll be time. Shinho. Sky Fox. My instincts tell me that's my destiny, even if I don't know what it entails. I have mixed feelings about that, but mostly? Ooh. Feel like this is a big one here. I know you could be excited. Oh my god. Okay, change is a good thing. So I'm sitting here like, I'm excited for what the change could mean. I don't want my current life to change. I'm going back and forth on this one, honestly. I'm going back and forth on this one. You know? Kind of feel like I should just go for it. I'm excited for what this could mean. It's intimidating, but it's also kind of exciting. It feels like anything can happen, and the promise of change is enough to make me want to see what comes next. The predictability of my daily life is comfortable and reassuring, but sometimes I can't help but miss the open possibilities that used to define it. Those days were harder, for sure, but it's struggling that made me appreciate the good times when they happened. Now that I still appreciate everything and everyone I have, but I wouldn't mind a bit more excitement.
It's too early for all this.
Not that there was a better time later, still I know that if I were to let myself think about these things for too long, I'll just start spiraling, so that I make myself get up and out of bed. For a small relief, the warmth from my bead has dissipated, like it just wanted me to notice it. Still bright, still cracked, but at least it isn't uncomfortable. After freshening up, I go downstairs where I'm surprised to find an empty kitchen. Juliet isn't around nor at breakfast or any dishes. I don't mind not having food prepared for me, but it's pretty odd. I go back upstairs and knock on her study door, but there's no answer. When I peek inside, I see a blanket I put around Juliet neatly draped over her chair, as well as a teapot that I filled for her on the desk. It's not Juliet, though. Try her bedroom as well, but it's also empty.
Juliet?
I call out her name, but it just echoes around the empty building with no response.
Weird.
I go back to the kitchen and then her study to confirm one thing. Her parasol is gone. She must have gone out somewhere. I grab some ingredients from the fridge and throw a pan onto the stove to make myself breakfast. I've never done it before, but I've seen Juliet cook enough times. Shouldn't be too hard. Prepare some eggs and toast the same way we usually have.
Not too bad.
Nice. Steaming meal isn't as tasty as what Juliet makes, but it's edible at least. The eggs are kind of rubbery and the toast is kind of like slightly warm bread, but I eat it all anyway. Either way, I'm proud of myself for making it, and you didn't burn it. I'm very proud of you. That's a good job. And even if you had burnt it, you're still trying. That's what matters. I always have a thing here. Dainty Tank household is basically like, if you attempt dinner and dinner fails, and it's like burnt, it doesn't work, it's not tasty at all, there's something weird that happened, then we just order out. Good try, we order out. As I'm finishing up, I feel something buzz near my side, and it takes me a moment to realize it's my phone. I fish that out to see that I have a message from Juliet. Good morning, are you awake? Yeah, I made food. Sorry I didn't cook for you. I'm at the mountain. Would you like to join me? Sure, on my way. Typing out each message is slow going, and judging by how long it takes for Juliet to respond, it's not easy for her either. I'm sure Aspen would have done it in half the time. Still, it's a surprise to hear Juliet's up on Mount Victoria, especially at this sunny hour. I'm sure I'll find out why soon. After cleaning up after myself, fish, opening up the library, then head over to the mountain myself. It isn't hard to find Juliet up at the top when I get there. Her parasol stands out over the heads of the other early morning hikers as she waits for me on the bench.
Morning.
Hello, Miho.
Hello. I sit down beside Juliet and she adjusts her parasol to give me some extra shade too.
I woke up and was surprised you weren't around. I didn't think you'd be here of all places.
When I left this morning, I had only intended to drop off the documents I finished preparing last night. But by then, it was nearly sunrise, so I thought to come up here and enjoy that. Sorry for falling asleep so suddenly last night. I appreciate you taking care of me, though.
That's fine. It was nice to be able to do something for you for once. Even if that was just bringing you a blanket.
Not just for once. You bring me joy just by being around.
And nuzzle against her, not caring that we're in public.
Still, it seemed like a weird time for you to fall asleep.
Yes. I've been having some trouble sleeping lately, I must admit. I catch a few hours here and there when I can.
I noticed. I've been hearing you around the house more often. Do you know why?
This and that. A lot on my mind.
I know what you mean. But hey, you said you finished your research project, right? So you'll be starting a new one now?
Actually, I won't. There haven't been any new requests.
Really? I thought you had tons of them.
I've been working through my backlog for a while, but I just finished the last of them.
That's awesome.
Oh.
Juliet and her research just go together in my head. I know it's how she spends most of her free time when we're not together. It's hard to picture her without something to work on.
You'll probably get some new ones soon, right?
Perhaps.
There's a tinge of sadness in her voice. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, especially if she's thinking about leaving soon. It would make sense for her not to want to start new ones. Change subject, I hop to my feet and stroll over to the tall metal binoculars by the railing. Juliet stands up too and follows me. No, I feed a couple coins into the device and then press my eyes to it, looking out at the city. Not very pretty. It's been a while since I've done this, so I recognize a lot more now than I did before.
What do you see?
There's the skyport. That one's easy to find. And there's the bell house. Hi, Aspen. I can see some of the gardens from here, too. They're really pretty, even from this far away.
I step away and gesture towards Juliet.
Wanna look?
She hesitates for a moment, but then steps forward and takes my place. I jerked the view around so quickly to pick things out, but Juliet maneuvers it slowly, methodically, like she's inspecting every inch of Wellington.
How about you? What do you see?
She's quiet for a second.
There's Diana's house, where I just dropped off those papers this morning. Close by is a park where she used to take her children to play. They're all grown up now, though. We're lamenting that together. Oh, Heaven Sent is a flower shop that used to sell the most beautiful bouquets. I can just see their roof from here. It's since become a restaurant, but I recognize the bright blue on top. What else? Braylin Primary, just near the library. That's where Cassette went to school. There's also...
You have so much trauma around your loss of people. It doesn't need to be the underworld. You could go to, like, Korea or other places in the overworld. It doesn't have to be Wellington. As lovely as Wellington is. With a whirl and a click, the binoculars run out of time and Juliet moves away from that.
Oops. I suppose that's that. That was quite nice, though. I haven't seen several of those places in many years.
Glad you liked it.
Although she's smiling, she's not actually sure she means it. Something suddenly makes sense to me. Something I would have expected, but only now understand. She saw a Wellington that doesn't exist anymore. One that I could never see, no matter how long I looked.
Well, I do believe I should be heading back. I'm sure I'll be itchy from all this sun, even with the shade. Will you be accompanying me?
Oh. Yeah, let's go.
So is it kind of like an allergic reaction? Her abrupt decision to leave feels painfully expected alongside what I just realized. That's twice in a row that I managed to make her feel bad by accident, even though I know I didn't do anything wrong. I had planned to tell her about the new changes in my head, but it doesn't feel like the right time. It would just be another thing to weigh on her mind. I slip my hand into Juliet's as we walk. Even with the subdued mood, it's nice to feel her so close to me. I hope she feels the same way, too. It's actually a good time to stop before we go into some more craziness with our favorite Lena. If you could subscribe, because it helps this channel, it does. Very much, it does. Every single subscriber counts right now, because there's a limit on how much I can do in the platform with the amount of subscribers I have. So, if you're around and you're liking the series, please subscribe, because that helps. It really, really does. And with that, I love you all. I'll see you next time. Bye.